Carney makes a deal, but no deal on a pipeline yet. This is Now You Know. I'm Rob Snow.
The top news stories
and conversations that matter to you.
This is Now You Know with Rob Snow on News Radio.
The Prime Minister is putting the wraps on another international visit before starting one more. Mark Carney is watching the ink dry on a new deal with the United Arab Emirates. According to the Prime Minister, the UAE has agreed to invest $70 billion in Canada. Speaking in Abu Dhabi today, Mr. Carney said it's part of his government's push to diversify Canada's economy.
It's been over 40 years since a Canadian Prime Minister has visited the United Arab Emirates. A lot has changed over that period of time. This is one of the wealthiest and one of the most dynamic economies in the world. It has a lot of conventional energy, oil and gas. It is one of the largest developers of renewable power in the world. It was chair of the COP process a few years ago. That's when I was here quite extensively in my previous role. It is also the leading adopter of artificial intelligence in the world. So that level of penetration, usage of artificial intelligence is the highest in the UAE. And it's one of the largest and most sophisticated set of investors in the world.
The Prime Minister then went on to say the two countries are going to start free trade negotiations.
We agreed yesterday, the President and I agreed to launch a free trade agreement process known as a CEPA, so it's broader than free trade. It would include digital and other aspects of trade. Our expectation is to conclude that so-called CEPA rapidly over the course of the next year or so, similar to what we're looking to do with Asian CEPA negotiations that we're having. I would just summarize, and you'll hear directly from people from the UAE, there is tremendous interest in expanding the economic relationship with Canada, both in terms of trade as well as investment.
The UAE doesn't have the greatest international reputation. Human rights groups say the UAE suppresses political dissent, restricts freedoms, violates human rights. It's often accused of exploiting migrant labor and is accused of helping fund the paramilitary forces in Sudan's civil war. The Prime Minister was asked if he brought any of this up with the UAE leadership.
I'll say one thing that the President and I had a long meeting, wide-ranging conversation. We talked about issues of global significance. We are partners. For example, the UAE has been an important partner for Canada in helping us to deliver humanitarian aid for Gaza. We were partners with them in helping with Afghanistan. We did discuss the situation in Sudan. We did discuss the importance of the Quad process, which is the UAE, Saudi Arabia, the United States, and Egypt, and the role that they need to play in establishing a ceasefire and peace, consistent with the comments and initiative of President Trump 2 days ago.
From the UAE, the Prime Minister is now off to South Africa for a G20 Leaders Summit. When he finally returns home, many eyes will be turned to what happens between his government and the Danielle Smith government in Alberta. All week, there have been news reports that Alberta and Ottawa are close to a deal on energy policy that could include a pipeline from northern Alberta to the northern coast of BC. The BC Premier, David Eby, is opposed to any new pipeline, but he would support increasing capacity in the existing Trans Mountain pipeline. But that's not good enough for Premier Smith.
I think that what we're seeing is that there's a change in the public dialogue about the need for oil and natural gas. And I think encouragingly, we've seen a number of natural gas projects go ahead and be on the major project list. We're fully supportive of that. We're hearing from a number of different pipeline companies. Enbridge wants to expand their capacity. Trans Mountain wants to expand their capacity. Southbow has a project that would go to using some of the old Keystone assets to increase capacity. We're doing the technicals on a new pipeline to the northwest BC coast. We have a potential to also do something similar to Churchill in the Port of Prince Rupert to Churchill economic corridor. We've got proposals coming to us about how we might be able to export to Thunder Bay and get them out through the channel system there, through the St. Lawrence Seaway, as well as oil by rail going all the way to Sydney, Nova Scotia.
Premier Smith has an ally in the West. It's not David Eby in British Columbia, but Saskatchewan's Scott Moe. Premier Moe told reporters he's been involved in the talks with Ottawa and Alberta about a pipeline to Prince Rupert.
Yeah, we're in those discussions as well, and very supportive of not only the removal of the emissions cap, but the opportunity to bring tankers in to that northwestern coast in British Columbia, not just for oil, but for other products as well. We'd like to expand, for example, our potash exports over the next number of years. We want to grow more agricultural products as well as expand our market access for oil. So we've been part of those discussions and very supportive of Alberta's position. When it comes to that piece of infrastructure, very supportive of them being a proponent at these early stages, and highly confident that as we balance the regulatory environment, that you'll see the private sector move very quickly.
In an interview, Premier Eby said he almost fell out of his chair when he learned that Alberta, Saskatchewan, and Ottawa were having such talks about a pipeline to BC. And it's not just Western premiers who are bullish these days on energy projects. This week, Nova Scotia Premier Tim Houston posted pictures of himself on his social media account at a big energy conference in the United States, where he was making a speech on his government's plans to develop onshore and offshore natural gas. I'm Rob Snow. This is Now You Know. This is News Radio.
Now You Know with Rob Snow continues on News Radio.
Well, he's our expert in communications, crisis communications, political communications, branding, and leadership. Barry McLoughlin back with us, the president of TLC Transformational Leadership Consultants. Barry lectures at the MBA program at the Shannon School of Business at Cape Breton University. You can read him on his Substack, listen to his podcast, catch him every Friday right here on News Radio. How are you this week?
Doing great, Rob. How about you?
Yeah, very good. Great to hear from you. The U.S. ambassador to Canada, Pete Heckstra, in Ottawa this week. He was attending a major manufacturers conference, and whenever he speaks, it makes news. And this week he said he didn't understand why Canadians were so upset at Trump's talk about the 51st state. And then he went on to rip into Doug Ford for running that Ronald Reagan ad during the World Series. Let's listen to this.
I go around the country and people will say, Pete, you just don't understand why we're so mad about the 51st state. It's kind of like, yeah, you're right, I don't. Okay?
Well,
and then I read, all I can say is to my Canadian friends is, you don't understand, because I read the media and I listen to other discussions, the president got mad about an ad. Well, I've been in this business for a while, and I know people who've been in it longer than I have. And I asked them, okay, the ad that was run by the government of Canada. Oh, that's not the government of Canada, it's Ontario. It's kind of like, I'm sorry, we don't go through that, slicing and dicing. And, it's kind of like, no one can ever remember a like circumstance where a foreign government came into the United States and they were talking about $54 million of ads, American dollars, so real money. Just a joke,
okay.
Just a joke.
Oh,
okay, lighten up.
That's the quote they're going to remember.
Yeah, that's going to get me into trouble. But targeting the President of the United States and his policies 10 days before an election, and a couple of weeks before a Supreme Court case would be heard in front of the Supreme Court. I'm sorry, that does not happen.
Okay. It's kind of a warning. Don't do that again. What did you think about what you heard from the ambassador there?
Well, it's very reflective of the tone and attitude he's had right from the beginning. We can joke about 51st state. It's just a joke. But dare you say something that actually affects directly the economy of Canada on a commercial that airs in the United States, yes, done by the province of Ontario, we'll just roll right over that and say, how dare you say that? You told the truth about what Ronald Reagan said. And I have seen that full video several times. It was the complete truth. And for him to sit there, of course, it's before a business community. And he's picking, certain communities that won't boo him off the stage. And he also gets himself interviewed by really mostly non-professional interviewers. If that was you or another broadcaster, you would do some great follow-up questions. Yeah, you just let him say these things. It's because you want to be polite. He's a guest speaker at your conference. So he positions those. And I have not only known, but been friends of American ambassadors, going back to even before the Bush era. And David Wilkins was George W. Bush's ambassador. Just use this as an example of how to be a U.S. ambassador. Bush was hated by Canadians, especially got to Iraq. It was terrible. But you know what? They loved David Wilkins. He had humility. He had gentle humor. He was able to engage without offending. And he, I believe, expanded the base of support that, even though it was somewhat thin here in Canada for George W. Bush. And Hexter's doing the opposite. Take everything you don't like about Donald Trump and double it up, because here's the Michigander about to tell you. And, it's so embarrassing. I think he'd be better off not going to these public events, not, doing any of this, because every time he opens his mouth, to change feet, it backfires. So I think that I just went to an event last night. Oh, he's doing exactly what Trump wants him to do. That's true. Self-immolation, I guess he can set himself on fire too. But, was he going to start defending the Epstein thing next? In the end, he's got himself in a corner, and he won't be able to get out of it.
You don't think he had a point?
Very, very lame, very, very weak.
No?
He has gone from free trade to coercive trade to coercive economy. If you buy those Swedish jets, you can just forget about the tariff negotiations. Like that, these are just threats. And he's using the power and coercive ability of the United States of America to put pressure on Canada on all fronts. He lies out of both sides of his mouth. Like at one moment, they're right in this. I watched the whole video that you clicked there. That a strong and prosperous Canada is good for us. Yeah, then why do you say, you and the president, we want to get rid of the Canadian auto industry? We want them all to move to the United States. How is that good for a strong and prosperous Canada? They say one thing and say another almost immediately. It's an art that the entire Trump administration has figured out. Talk all over the mat, throw so many things on the wall, you can't keep up with it, overtalk you. Okay. And basically, they don't have a coherent argument because basically it doesn't exist. So instead, they scattershot all kinds of things. And I guess they hope that enough people in America will believe them. And so far, 40 percentile seems to do that. But I think he's slipping now.
Okay, be right back. We'll talk about what the better sales pitch will be from retailers this year. Black Friday almost here, inundated with Black Friday sales. Christmas shopping season well underway. Is it going to be buy Canadian, or is that a passing fad? Or will it be save money? Because people need to save money. They're tapped out. Be right back with Barry McLoughlin from TLC Transformational Leadership Consultants. This is News Radio.
There is no question Rob won't get answered.
Now You Know with Rob Snow continues
on News Radio.
Back with Barry McLoughlin, the president of TLC Transformational Leadership Consultants. Black Friday almost here. Christmas shopping season well underway. What do you think will be the more common sales pitch from retailers this time of year, just given the economic situation? Will it be buy Canadian? Buying Canadian can be more expensive. Or will it be we will save you money? What do you think, Barry?
It's actually a great question. I don't think it'll be blatant because it kind of spoils the atmosphere of Christmas. People want to kind of park that politics and tariff stuff, just park that aside. If you want to kind of position this as a Canadian product, you do it subtly woven into the narrative, into the into the actual commercials and ads themselves. For Canadians getting together, and and those who work hard to create these beautiful things for Canadians. Like, in other words, it has to be more subtle than Buy Canadian. I think that was good when April came up, but I think now as time goes on, it gets a little tiresome. And you have to remember that with the economy, we've now got the greed and the extreme fear index is at its absolute peak, according to the CNN, that, people are anxious right now. And there are two kind of categories here. One is that people will buy Canadian even if the price is more, and that has been the case. But I think we're into the second category, which is buy Canadian if the price is either the same or less, that they will go and choose Canadian. But they won't take an extra, dollar out to pay for it. So I think that's an important point to keep in mind, and you shouldn't hit them over the head with it.
Yeah, we've seen, for example, all the big grocery store chains just recently released their financial results, and then they had to do the conference calls with the stock analysts, and they were saying that, Buy Canadian was a thing, but consumer trends have kind of switched back to the way they were. And, say if Procter & Gamble dish soap is cheaper than the Canadian alternative, even if you can find one, people will go for that. They're back to their old ways. And I wonder, do you think it's a passing fad, this Buy Canadian? Was it a fad? Is it a fad? What do you think?
It's not a fad, but it's one of those that shrinks over time. We got rid of the counter tariffs, which actually helped lower the prices because we were tariffing ourselves,
Right.
So some of that has been by our own actions, and some of it is becoming more and more negligible. But I know a tremendous number of people, they got money all right, but they're not going to spend it on American products, and they're very proud to tell you that. So there's always going to be that percentile, don't know what it is. But the other ones that are price sensitive, they're not going to take the hit in order to buy Canadian. I don't believe they will. So it is shrinking, but it'll be a base or a foundation that will be there. I don't think it's going to grow. I think it gradually is shrinking down.
Very good. Great to hear from you this week and have your insight, Barry. Have a great weekend.
Thank you. You too, Rob.
Yeah, we'll speak soon. That's Barry McLoughlin. He is the president of TLC, Transformational Leadership Consultants, and also a lecturer at the MBA program at the Shannon School of Business at Cape Breton University. Tom Korski is going to join us right after the latest breaking news. He's the managing editor at Blacklock's Reporter, and he's been minding Ottawa's business all week long. I'm Rob Snow. This is News Radio.
You have questions.
Now you know with Rob Snow has the answers.
On News Radio.
Well, he's been minding Ottawa's business all week long, and back with us for another week is Tom Korski, the managing editor at Blacklock's Reporter. Welcome back.
Well, thank you, Rob.
What did the clerk of the... Well, let's listen to what the clerk of the Privy Council said, actually. Michael Sabia is the clerk of the Privy Council, and he was asked about the Prime Minister and other higher-ups around the Prime Minister owning Brookfield shares. Let's listen to this together here.
When you layer it down to the specifics, there is the potential for profit to be made. Do you not believe, sir, that complete divestment is the answer in this case? And I understand there's tax implications, but we're talking about the confidence that Canadians have in the office holder in the highest office of the land. Do you not believe divestment should be the option?
Honestly, Mr. President, I think I come back to something that I said earlier. And to be blunt, I don't think it's that simple. I don't think it's that simple because I think, given the issues facing Canada today, this is a time when Canada needs to be able, and it's not just the Prime Minister I'm talking about, I'm thinking about ministers, I'm thinking about other senior people coming into government, where we need access to the best talent that this country can provide. I think that's fundamentally important because this country faces a set of challenges, the likes of which we probably haven't faced since the Second World War. That, I think, requires careful judgment about striking a balance between, on the one hand, the very legitimate point you make with respect to confidence and accountability and transparency, which is what the screen is all about, and why we are being so diligent and so careful about that screen, because I endorse 100% the importance of those principles in the eyes of Canadians. On the other hand, we also have to be able to get the best talent that we can.
All right. Okay. Very interesting. I don't think it's that simple, says the clerk of the Privy Council. What do you think about that?
I think it's asinine, Rob. Forgive my candor. The Prime Minister's a multimillionaire. We're all capitalists. No one holds it against him. He didn't become a multimillionaire because he pulled himself up by his bootstraps and started an amazing business. He became a multimillionaire because he had connections with people who already had millions. Nothing wrong with that. But you can't bring that over into public office, which he did as Prime Minister of Canada. The list of his stock holdings runs to 16 pages. I've never seen a portfolio like it. And he won't sell. This is not a high ethical bar. We hold the mayor of the town council to this bar. If you want to do public business, it cannot benefit your private business. Everybody knows Carney is going to have to wind up selling his stock anyway, whether Parliament forces him by amending the Conflict of Interest Act, or whether because he stops telling his employees to go down to committee and give these intellectually tortured responses about why he needs to keep his shares in Cayman Island trust funds. It's baffling to me that he's resisting this. I don't get it.
What about the clerk's own shares? He had shares in Brookfield. What's going on with those?
He sure did, and he sold them. And he was asked, well, why would you sell your shares in Brookfield? He said, well, to make it simpler. Exactly. That's exactly the point.
Right.
So you're paid to do a job.
But he said it wasn't that simple. But he said it wasn't that simple.
Oh, Rob, they are tying themselves in knots over this, and whenever it gets that tortured, you know how it's going to end. And it's baffling to me why they want to drag this process out and make it as painful as possible. That committee, that's the Commons Ethics Committee, you know they're going to come back with a report, and the opposition has already told you what the report's going to say. You want to be a party leader in this parliament? You sell your stock. You want to trade stock? Be my guest. Stay home and trade stock. But you can't have it both ways.
Okay. Everything old is new again. The interim federal health program was a big story in Ottawa about a dozen years ago because the Harper government made changes to the interim federal health program that a federal court called cruel and unusual. And it was unconstitutional. You shouldn't do it. So first of all, for people who aren't aware, what is it, the interim federal health program, and why is it back in the news?
If you are an illegal immigrant or a refugee claimant, you can step off a plane from Mexico City and claim refugee status. You are automatically entitled to some federal benefits, and one of them is Medicare coverage. But it's not coverage that's available to many, many millions of private sector workers. What does it include? Dental care, vision care, therapy, lab tests, clinic fees, ambulance fees, hearing aids, wheelchairs, other assisted devices, prescription drugs, free prescription drugs. And the costs are getting up there, Rob. This year, the budget is $598 million, and there may be additions to that. And MPs have said, this is out of control. And they have called in the auditors at the Commons Health Committee. And if that is audited, it's not going to end well. The figures don't add up. And the Department of Immigration, has been resistant on this, perhaps in the manner of some of Carney's staffers. There is a pushback against this. It's a legitimate question to ask. Why should Canadians who pay for their own prescription drugs because they don't have a plan have to pay for prescription drugs for an illegal immigrant? Why? They won't answer.
Yeah, they're also making changes to the medical exams that refugees are required to undergo. What's going on there?
It was a sort of a strange amendment. It's the law now. It passed just by legal notice, a cabinet order. The Minister of Immigration, Mrs. Diab from Halifax. If you are a landed legitimate refugee. In other words, you claimed refugee status, had to undergo a medical exam when you landed at the airport or crossed the border, and you're certified. It's on the level. Then, if you want to claim permanent residency, in other words, you want to stay in Canada, and that leads to citizenship, you have to undergo, under the current law, another medical exam. The question is, will you pose a public health risk? It's very straightforward. It's not a complicated test, costs about $400. And the feds decided to waive that requirement to undergo that test. And they said they saw it was low risk. But, Rob, forgive my candor. Cabinet has been slow to understand that because of immigration mismanagement, there is now a blowback against immigrants. And that is putting them in a tight place. I get it. But they acknowledge it halfway by cutting their immigration quotas, but won't go the whole way and say, what's sauce for the goose, sauce for the gander. You can't have free medical tests and prescription drugs for some and not for others. It just gets everybody upset.
Okay, when we come back, we'll talk about CERB. Yes, more news about CERB. I said when those CERB payments were going out, Tom, years from now, we're going to be talking about CERB. And here we are today. November of 2025, still talking about the CERB. This is News Radio.
No question goes unasked or unanswered.
Now You Know with Rob Snow returns on News Radio.
Tom Korski is with us again this week, the managing editor at Blacklock's Reporter. What's the latest on the government's attempts to recoup ill-gotten CERB payments?
A little line item in the budget to Rob. They are funding debt collectors through to 2028 because they were hitting some statutory deadlines. This is not something that'll be 8 years after the checks went out. Those are the famous $2,000 a month checks intended for jobless tax filers facing eviction or foreclosure. The claims went through the roof. Budgeted at $24 billion, came in at $75 billion in payouts. They've been picking up the pieces ever since, Rob.
Wow. Well, I mean, how many people do they think collected a CERB check that they weren't supposed to get?
They never actually anticipated that. And the problem was, and the auditors told them, you say, okay, fine. Cabinet's always said it was an emergency. We were worried. We wanted people to be safe. That's great. But auditors said very quickly afterwards, you should have initiated your post-payment verification and gotten on it. And they didn't. They were slow. My favorite CERB stat of all time, through access to information, grade 9 students, so this is 50-year-olds, 41,000 claimed pandemic relief checks. The little scammers were hanging outside the junior high, giving each other tips on how to claim $2,000 checks. 41,000. God bless them. 41,000.
Yeah, isn't that great? Went to students in grade 9. I every time you bring that up, I just think like $2,000 a month. You're 15, 16, 17, and the government is sending you $2,000 a month. Like, that is the best summer ever. Those kids had the best summer ever. They really did. Go find a job, kid. Why would I, Dad? Like, the government is sending me where am I going to get a job that pays me $2,000 a month? Come on, you're kidding. Yeah, wow. But you have this quote here from MP Carignan from Quebec. Has the revenue agency just given up the idea of ever recovering the money? 4 million people owe money. 4 million people owe money. My goodness, including, about 300,000 kids in high school. Isn't that something? This is a heck of a story.
I mean, 9 million claimants. There were 9 million people received checks. Jobless Canadians. Well, the workforce was only 19 million at the time. So, we never had 50% unemployment rate in 1933. Let alone in 2000. Oh yeah, it was like shooting fish in a bucket. They couldn't lose.
Okay. This is very interesting to me, and it's not getting a lot of press outside of Blacklock's Reporter, but the federal government has a vast art collection, but many pieces of ours have gone missing. How many?
132. This is their Indigenous art collection. This started 50 years ago, 1965. the department started to collect Indigenous art in a public collection. It's now worth about $14 million, and people believe that is a low figure. This is the most recognizable art, Canadian art, worldwide. Soapstone carvings, Inuit, Haida, West Coast totem poles, you name it. And 5,000, over 5,000 pieces they've collected. The auditors come in and discover 132 pieces are missing. We just see, literally this morning from the department, access to information, they will not name the individual pieces that are unaccounted for. Auditors said security was so poor, it was an invitation to theft. The department is getting very cagey on this. Rob, there's no excuse for this. They had 10 staff who were paid to keep the collection, and inexplicably, some of these pieces, now identified as cultural treasures, have gone amiss. And the police were never called. This is going to end badly.
Okay, yeah. Very good. Stick around. We have to talk about the latest in the soap opera that is trying to find a new parliamentary budget officer. The opposition and the government are sparring on that. And Tom's found another high flyer. One of Ottawa's great high flyers. You want a great gig? Become the commissioner of the Canadian Nuclear Safety Commission. Whew, what a life. We'll tell you more when we come back. This is News Radio.
Critical thinking is not dead.
Now you know with Rob Snow.
Returns on News Radio.
With Tom Korski, the managing editor at Blacklock's reporter. What is the opposition up to with the hiring process for a new parliamentary budget officer?
Well, they want to make sure it's on the level. Rob, the cabinet has sort of painted itself into a corner on this. The taxpayers have no greater friend amongst officers of Parliament than the budget officer, not the Information Commissioner, Privacy Commissioner, Public Sector Integrity Commissioner, not the Auditor General. The budget officer has caused cabinet more grief in calling out reckless spending, misfeasance, and simply pie-in-the-sky projections. The cabinet has always wanted to appoint a stooge. Who wouldn't? The problem is, under the law, Parliament of Canada Act, there has to be some consultation with other parties, and now opposition through the Commons Government Operations Committee say, you know what? We think we're just going to interview those candidates ourselves. It is a challenge to cabinet, but the cabinet is frankly desperate to get anyone who is going to be more go along, get along than the last two budget officers.
Yeah. I mean, Mr. Giroux, they had issues with him because he took them to task for the carbon tax. First of all, there big debate over the carbon tax, and Liberals were not happy with him. He admitted he made a mistake in one of his reports, went back and corrected it, and it pretty much showed the same thing anyway, that the carbon tax, the government had always claimed that the government gave out more money than it ever collected in carbon tax, and that people were better off because of it, right? Well, that wasn't true. And once his term was up, it wasn't renewed. They've had this guy, Jason Jacques, who's been the interim officer, and they're not happy with him because he appeared before a committee speaking about the government's finances, and he was using words like stupefying and shocking and alarming. So they can't wait to show that guy the door either.
Can't wait. But good luck.
Yeah.
You know, you don't. I get it. You don't get to pick your linesman when you're on the ice, though. Someone else does,
right.
and especially when they don't have the votes as a majority, and they do not have the votes.
He's the parliamentary budget officer. He doesn't answer to the government. He answers to Parliament. He reports to Parliament. Okay. Well, to wrap up this week, I mean, it's great to be the president of the Canadian Nuclear Safety Commission, Pierre Tremblay. Tell us about the fabulous life of the Canadian Nuclear Safety Commissioner, Mr. Tremblay. What's he been up to?
It's a pretty good life. He's paid $343,000 a year. This year, he increased his expense account 85% to $185,000, plus a $50,000 housing allowance. He once took a $14,000. This is his first year in office. He's a greenhorn. $14,000 junket to Paris. Stayed stayed at a $640 a night hotel. My favorite was he stayed at a resort hotel in a former hunting lodge outside Marseille where there's wild boar with gnocchi on the menu. So that beats drive-through.
Lovely.
And he likes limos.
He sure does.
Took
he likes limos, that's for sure. Hey, come on, Uber. You think the Nuclear Safety Commissioner is going to fetch an Uber? Come on.
Only losers drive themselves, Rob.
Right. Yeah. But even usage, you have the data. Usage of limos way up, right? Yeah, way up.
Oh, it was huge. What he did was he liked to fly to Ottawa. He lives in Whitby, Ontario, which is just outside Toronto. He had routine meetings in Ottawa. Instead of taking the train or driving yourself, it's not a big deal. He liked to take a limo to the airport and then a flight up to town, up to Ottawa, 37 times. So talk about climate impacts.
My gosh. I'm curious about one line item. Maybe you can do some further digging. I want to know what he had for breakfast in Ottawa at an Ottawa hotel that costs $43. A $43 breakfast. Man,
that's not a poached egg.
Did he have a dozen poached eggs? All right. Thank you. Have a great weekend.
You bet.
Caught up next week. Bye-bye. Yeah. Unbelievable. This is News Radio.
It's time to talk back.
On Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Call now.
And have your say.
1-833-668-2577.
Welcome to Talkback. It's 2 hours of debate and discussion on the big issues of the day. Today, it's the Friday free-for-all. Our favorite day of the week around here. We don't come up with the topics on Friday. We leave that job up to you. So what's on your mind? What do you want to talk about? If you want to talk about something that's been in the news, there's always news. And there was lots of news this week. If you want to talk about something you think should be in the news, you feel free to raise it here. Whatever it happens to be, serious, not so serious. I'm leaning toward the not so serious side today because we've had some heavy duty conversations this week. I wouldn't mind having some lighter fare, but we have a phone line for you, and all of our phone lines are open right now. And the number to call, as you just heard, 1-833-668-2577, 1-833-668-2577. And if you've never called before, just mention that, and we'll make your call a priority. Again, 1-833-668-2577. Every single phone line available right now. The wait won't be too long. As I said, I'm interested in some lighter fare today. Here's an interesting Friday topic, just as a conversation starter. You just consider this, maybe give it some thought, give me a call. It's not even in the news, as far as I can tell. I couldn't find a news story on it, but it could make for an interesting discussion today. Research Co. is a polling firm run by a guy named Mario Canseco. Nice guy. He's been on the program before. And his firm did a poll. The results came out yesterday. And this is what he asked. Do you think there is a place for creationism to be taught in the province's classrooms? Do you think there is a place for creationism to be taught in the province's classrooms? And you know what? Almost half of those polled said yes. Said yes. 48% said yes. It was the most popular answer. Yes. Creationism. Creation is the belief that God created the world and everything in it in 6 days, and we are all here because of divine will. Creationism. And almost half said they should teach about creationism in school. I have to say, I was kind of shocked by that result. I am curious, and perhaps you have a better understanding than I do as to why the number would be so high. I thought it'd be a lot lower than that, to be quite honest with you. They asked the same question 2 years ago, and the percentage of people saying yes, they'd be okay if creationism was taught in schools. They think creationism should be taught in schools. It's actually higher now than it was just 2 years ago, up by about 7 percentage points or so. 48% of Canadians think creationism should be part of the school curriculum in their province. What do you think about that? What's going on there? 35% disagreed, said no. They don't believe creationism should be taught in the schools. 18% said they didn't have an opinion one way or the other. But almost half said they'd be okay with it. And support, you know what, pretty broad across the country. It was highest in Ontario, 54%. It was 50% across Atlantic Canada. 48% in Saskatchewan and Manitoba. In Alberta, 46%, 41% in BC, and even in most secular Quebec, it was 43% in that province. Now, that doesn't mean that almost half of those polls believe in creationism as opposed to evolution, because Mario asked a follow-up question, what do you believe in, creationism or evolution? 61% said evolution, 23% said creationism. Almost 1 in 4. But even politically, there's not a big divide, say, between liberals and conservatives on this issue. Teaching creationism in the schools, slightly more than half of liberals and slightly more than half of conservatives support it. Teaching creationism in the schools. Very, very interesting. Only New Democrats don't like the idea. Just 38% New Democrats. The godless New Democrats. Few questions for you. Why do you think that number's so high? Why do you think support for teaching creationism in the schools is as high as it is? And look, let me just run this by you. Okay. What would you think if, say, your provincial government, the education minister one day, or the premier came out and said, we're going to start teaching creationism in the schools? Out of the blue. Premier Ford or Premier Houston or Premier Smith said, starting next fall, we're going to teach creationism in the schools. What would be your reaction to that? I'm just curious. Because as far as I know, it's not part of any public school curriculum anywhere in the country right now. What if it was? What if it was? Because Canadians seem to be, at least according to this one poll, seem to be pretty open to the idea. What about you? 1-833-668-2577. 1-833-668-2577. And if you've never called before, again, just mention that to us. We'll make your call a priority. And let's get the Friday free-for-all underway as soon as we bring you right up to date on everything that's been going on in your community. I'm Rob Snow. This is Talkback, and this is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Alex in Calgary is up first today on the Friday Free for All Talkback. Hi, Alex.
How you doing?
Very good, Alex. What's on your mind?
So, yeah, in relation to your question about creationism being taught in school, it's an interesting one. I wouldn't be in favor of it in a public school. I think it would be expected in the Catholic system or in a Christian school.
Okay.
But I think if it were to show up in public school as a parent, I think it's an interesting opportunity just to have a conversation with your kids about that belief system and why it's out there, why it's popular. So I don't think it's as big a deal for people who don't believe in it to have it show up in your kids' curriculum, because it does open up an opportunity, I think, to have a conversation with your kids about, where that comes from and why it's becoming more popular.
Yeah. And again, it wasn't, would you be comfortable with it in a private school or a Christian school or an Islamic school or a Jewish school? It was just in the province's schools where you live. Yeah. Should it be part of the school curriculum in your province?
I think it also depends on the grade a little bit too, because if it shows up in the later grades, again, I think it's an interesting conversation to have, if you're very scientific minded, especially in a science class, to have some debate about the merits of that belief. I think in the younger grades, it would be, I think there'd be more of a pushback because it can feel a little bit more influential, I think, with younger kids in elementary school, especially if it goes against beliefs of parents or of families. But the question you had too is, why is it becoming more popular? And I think it's just,
it's almost half of Canadians say they'd be fine with it, teaching it as part of the curriculum.
It takes a lot of pressure off explaining a pretty big topic. So when kids come with those questions and they start to ask bigger questions that goes beyond like why is the sky blue, having that explanation of creationism ties it up nice and may avoid more difficult or more complex conversations. And I think generally there are lots of people who believe it wholeheartedly. I'm sure there's listeners that are like, that's how they grew up. That's what they were taught. But I think the rise in popularity it explains a lot with something very relatable. And it takes away some of that pressure of having like existential conversations, especially with
so
kids.
You'd be okay with it. You don't sound too comfortable with it in public schools, more in private schools. But if it was in public schools in the later grades, you would say in the later.
I think in the later grades, because it's. I mean, if you look at the half of Canadians being comfortable, I think it's an interesting conversation. And as a parent, I don't think we have to freak out. I think we can just have a conversation about it with our kids, and it doesn't necessarily mean it has to pull your beliefs in a different direction. But I think it's on a parent by parent basis how you deal with that incoming information is probably more manageable than trying to control what the province is going to do, because we know that they're going to make decisions.
Sure thing. Okay. Thank you. Very good. Very interesting. Thank you. So he's somewhat comfortable, I would say. That's interesting. John is in Halifax. Hi, John.
Hey, how's it going? The first time caller.
Very good, John. I appreciate that. Yeah. What's on your mind?
Yeah. Well, I've been thinking through this a little bit, and I've always kind of wondered, when you start talking about origins, right, that's something that's not replicable, right? So it's not really science, it's philosophy. It's how does it, how do things start? Where did it all come from? We can look at things that we can test in science. So I think if you're going, it's not that, okay, so let me just rephrase a little bit. So, the idea of philosophy entering into science is not completely absurd, but it is a philosophical comment. And so if they're going to add it into school curriculum, fine, but it has to be not in science. It has to be in philosophy.
Sure.
Science is just something that you can replicate. So sure.
Yeah, I don't know what what would the equivalent be in, say, a junior high or a high school where it would be appropriate to teach creationism.
Well, again,
social studies, maybe something like that.
It could be. It could also be taught, in world religions.
Okay.
Yeah, science itself has limitations, right? But if it's going to be part of the conversation, there are well-respected scientists that say, when I look at a building, I know there was a designer because it has intelligence. When I look at a single cell, I see intelligence. So to think that we were not seeded by some advanced society, whether it's a god or something else, it's not a far-fetched theory, but like any origins, it's a theory that has various roots. To call it science would mean they would have to be able to replicate it in a test tube, and that's not science.
Right, and again, that's not really the suggestion here. The suggestion is just, what if it was taught in schools or not? Let's say you're in Halifax. Let's say the education. No, I didn't. Let's say the education minister in Nova Scotia said, starting in the fall, there will be a course on creationism as part of the curriculum in school. Right. What would you think about that?
What I would say is, tell me what you mean by creationism, because creation sounds like origins. If you're talking about evolution, that's different. Creationism is different. If you're talking about where did we come from, well, maybe that's a social studies argument, and I wouldn't mind that, as long as there is an understanding that there is a widespread understanding of beliefs that are tied to science and tied to religion and tied to other things. I don't want to bar thought. I want us to be open and welcome to a variety of different ideas.
Okay, very good. Thank you. The exact language in the poll for creationism is the belief that the universe and life originated from specific acts of divine creation. That was the language used in the poll. Be right back. It's Talkback. That's an interesting one, isn't it? This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Ann is in Calgary on the Friday Free for All Talkback. Hi, Ann. What's on your mind today?
Hi. A couple of things have come out in the last couple of days that have me scratching my head. And by things coming out, I mean from our federal government and sending money to other countries. Most notably, our government has given $528 million to the European Space Agency. And what's ironic about that is that the European Space Agency is in the UK, and it's located on a property that's owned 50% by Brookfield Asset Management. The other 50% of it is owned by the UK. Yeah, this is easily discovered. I saw it on social media, so then I went and did some fact checking, and it is indeed true. The campus name, I don't know if I can find it here. It's called the Harwell Science and Innovation Campus in Oxfordshire. Is Brookfield Asset Management acquired a 50% stake in the Harwell Science and Innovation Campus via a joint venture. So, first of all, we're sending $528 million to the European Space Agency when, as the parliamentary budget officer has told us, we're in dire straits. So why are we doing this? And is it not a conflict that Brookfield is 50% owner in the Harwell Science and Innovation Campus? The other thing that really got to me was our government has given, I got this yesterday, $24 million for youth unemployment in Senegal. And it's important to note that the youth unemployment rate in Senegal is lower than it is in Canada. It absolutely
I didn't
boggles
see
my
that
mind.
announcement.
Yes.
I didn't see that announcement.
It's on their website. And then again, just some fact checking. Yep. Yes, there is a funding announcement by the Global Affairs Canada, the GAC, of about Canadian $24 million for Youth Economic Opportunity Project in Senegal. Why this isn't making the news is beyond me. Well, I have other thoughts on that. But why the average Canadian needs to know that our government is sending billions out of this country, yet we're in dire straits here. This is infuriating. And to compound that is that none of the media outlets are reporting about this. Why?
Okay, I can't speak to why media outlets are not reporting on this. You know, the news media these days. It's not what it used to be. Okay, yeah, I have this Government of Canada project profile, professional skills and youth employability in green sectors. Okay, green sectors. Maximum contribution, $25 million through Global Affairs Canada. Senegal, 100% Senegal for secondary education, vocational training, biodiversity, environmental education and training, and rural development. Climate change adaptation, youth issues, gender equality, biodiversity, and environmental sustainability. The project aims to strengthen community resilience by integrating young people, particularly young women, into a sustainable, inclusive economic system that promotes adaptation to climate change. There you go. So it's maximum of $25 million, and the planned disbursement for budget year 2025-2026 will be $3,025,000. Good catch.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
It sure is. It's the Friday Free for All Talkback, and let's go to Mike in Halifax up next. Hi, Mike.
How you doing today?
Yeah, very good, Mike. What's on your mind?
Yeah. Rob, I say absolutely no to the creationism being taught in school. And
Okay.
the
Why is that?
reason I say that is because
Yeah.
I have watched over many decades how things get put out there for a lead for something else. And my greatest fear is that, oh, well, if we're going to teach that, why don't we teach a bunch of the other beliefs and religions? And I mean, it's fair ball. And I just wouldn't want to open that floodgate to any of my grandchildren or great-grandchildren. I just assume, they learn what they learned from their parents and leave it at that. I want to touch base, Rob, on the conversation you just had, and what the heck? I love that segment. I wish you had it on for an hour with Blacklocks. Like, it's educational and it's fascinating to see. Honest to God, it just feels like we've got the worst bunch of crooks that are being selected in positions of opportunity. It's frightening to see, and you had there was a bit on there about in Blacklocks about the refugees getting prescriptions for nothing, and medical and dental and vision, and I'm thinking, I don't have that. I don't have anywhere near that, and it's quite insulting. On top of watching people like Carney get filthy, rotten rich, just
Well, I mean, he was already filthy rich. I don't know if he's, I have to draw the line right there. But let me ask you this, just on this, there used to be a time when you would name and shame these people who are living this way, all on the taxpayer's dime. You will remember David Dingwall being from your part of the country. I'm sure he was a pretty big liberal heavy hitter in Ottawa for years. Many cabinet positions, Minister of Public Works. And after he left politics, he had a plum gig as the CEO of the Mint. Do you remember that? He was the CEO of the Mint.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah,
and he was expensing all of these things, including chewing gum. That was the one that set everybody off, because everybody can relate to chewing gum. Like, how cheap are you that you can't bet you're billing? You're billing chewing gum, right? Okay. So what did he say? I'm entitled to my entitlements, and he never lived that down, right? He never lived that down.
What a gig he had, like, to be accepted into the Senate. And I don't know what his salary would have been as a reporter, but I can only imagine the perks and benefits and salary were.
No, you're thinking of Mike Duffy. You're thinking of Mike Duffy. You're thinking of Mike Duffy. I'm talking about David Dingwall. David Dingwall's the head of Cape Breton University now. Okay.
Oh, but, I know.
So
David.
he has, he's recovered somewhat. But here now you have this report, and I'm thinking of Bev Oda and the scandal around Bev Oda and the glass of orange juice on a European junket, and her taking limos here and her taking limos there. I mean, they shamed her out of cabinet. Here you have this guy, Pierre Tremblay, head of the Canadian Nuclear Safety Commission. Of course, you want a smart guy in there, Canadian Nuclear Safety Commission. You don't want Homer Simpson to be the head of the Canadian Nuclear Safety Commission. So you pay the guy $343,000 a year. And you give him $100,000 travel and hospitality budget. He gets in there immediately. $100,000 hospitality and travel budget is not enough. He hikes it to $185,000. $185,000 for travel and hospitality, and a $50,000 executive and housing allowance on top of the $343,000 a year salary. He's hopscotching all over the world, $14,000 junket to Paris, and he's staying in only the finest hotels. Okay. 5 in Ottawa. The guy lives in Whitby. Whitby to Ottawa is what? 3.5 hours. He's flying back and forth. He's driving to Pearson, driving to the Island Airport in Toronto and flying to Ottawa. It's a 3.5 hour drive. He could take the train if he's a higher up in the public service like he is, probably get a train pass from Via for free. But no, he's flying. Yeah. Why not? You got a $185,000 travel allowance, right? In Ottawa, I've stayed at most of these hotels. $503 a night at the Delta. Okay, the Delta's a nice hotel. It's not the Chateau Laurier, but it's nice. $503 a night. $483 a night at the Sheraton? At the Sheraton? Like what kind of, and $43 for breakfast. $43 for breakfast. Wouldn't you love to see that spread? $43 for breakfast. It's
so corrupt,
unconscionable to me. And you know, you go to the grocery store, and I see this with my own two eyes. I saw it just the other day when I was in the grocery store. You see people walking through the meat aisle, and they're picking up stuff, and they're looking at the price, and they're putting it back because they can't afford it. They can't afford ground beef that costs $12 or $13 or $14. They can't afford bacon when it's, you know, $10 and $11 a package. And here you have this guy going to stay at the Marriott in Washington, $500 a night. Hotel Lilo Roberts in Helsinki, $635 a night. Hotel au Manoir Saint-Germain in Paris, $640 a night. Goes to Vienna, $10,000 just for the airfare. And on and on and on and on it goes. Shame, I say. Shame. Thank you for your call. I appreciate that. Pierre Tremblay, shame. For shame, sir. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Sean in Cambridge is on the Friday Free for All Talkback. Hi, Sean. What's on your mind today?
Yeah. Well, that last call was really depressing. Anyway,
I got a little fired up there. Sorry about that.
Wow, it depressed the house. Anyway, going back to the creationism in school. So I assume they're talking Christian creationism. Am I correct
doesn't
there?
say that. Doesn't say that.
Yeah.
Just says creationism.
But I'm assuming it's probably Christian, because if they are, because, I mean, honestly, I want equal time for the Eddas and the Ymir, all praise Odin. And I also want, to hear about the great cauldron from the Druids as well. I mean, fair is fair, in all honesty. I want to hear about it all.
Okay, but you're aware, that most major religions have a creation story. In the Abrahamic religions, in Christianity and Islam and Judaism, it's essentially most of it is the same story about Adam and Eve and the God creating the world in 6 days.
But if we're going to have this in school, though, it needs to be put in the appropriate corpus underneath legends and myths, because that's what it is. It's legends and myths. It should not be treated as fact, quite frankly. That's all I'm saying.
That would be your opinion, I suppose. And that's not what they say. It's just a question: should it be taught at all? Should it be taught? And you would say,
no.
You're kind of mocking it. You're mocking it, right? You're mocking people's religious beliefs.
I am mocking. I am, quite frankly. I think we're going backwards.
Okay.
If you want a religious education,
very tolerant of you. Very tolerant of you, Sean, as usual. Very tolerant. Very tolerant and open-minded.
Like I said, I know. If I want your opinion,
incredibly disrespectful as well, I might add. Thank you, Sean, for your call today. Let's go to John, is in Olds, Alberta. Thank you, John, for calling. Hi, John.
Hi, Rob. I appreciate the job you do. You do a lot more than anyone else in the media. I'm just going to stand the vehicle here. Anyways, the thing is, I think there's another concern is inflation, and our debt to GDP is getting out of hand. Carney's a money printer. He was the Bank of England governor, Bank of Canada governor. He prints a lot of money, and people say, well, who cares? Well, we should care, because you look at maybe 30% of Canadians can't afford a $1,000 emergency bill because they're broke. And if their rate of savings after tax is not greater than the rate of inflation, they're going to find it having a tough time. And how do they then, without working a second job or eating less, or I see old people like what you said, that really hit the nail on the head. At the meat aisle, they pick something up, they put it back, they head to the till, they got two things in their cart. And so I encourage other people. It is, and it's wrong. And this money printing, and the other lady, she mentioned a lot of stuff there about the waste that goes on. And you're the only guy, Rob, the only guy who I listen to, and I listen to a lot of stuff around the world. The UK media, some of their papers are pretty good, but in Canada, you're the only guy who's shining a light on this that I've seen. And we need to really look at this strongly. Maybe we could do a show on ways to help people with different things. I mean, you want me to get on and look at different financial stuff, but we're double or AAA credit rated right now in Canada, one of maybe 6 nations in the world. It's shocking, actually. Our debt to GDP, it changes 106%, $30,000 per person nationally. Quebec is $30,000 provincially, and then you tack on the $30,000 nationally. Ontario's the same, so you got $60,000. I mean, the states, they're in never land. The Liz Truss moment that they had. I mean, I'm a farmer and I just sit around the tractor driving and working and stuff, but I think about this stuff and I look online when I'm not busy doing things with the tractor. But the thing is, we'll have a Liz Truss moment, I believe, in Canada and the United States. I mean, I'm not an expert, but that was when their bonds that they had really low rates at, they went underwater and the Bank of England had to bail them out. And you look at Britain right now, and I'm concerned we're following them because we defaulted in 1931 along with Britain on our debt. Most people don't know that.
No, but, I don't know about that.
No, and I didn't want to get technical on this stuff, but Britain now spends double what their defense budget is on their debt, their interest. And you know what? If we're not careful, we're going to be there really quick. And ultimately, I'm concerned about the fact that, they're taxing illegally, or maybe it's legally, or whatever you want to call it, but whether it's old people, whether it's widows, whether it's orphans, everybody's being taxed because of inflation. And it's an invisible tax, and really there has to be some price stability in the currency. The currency has to be a store value. Mr. Carney should know that. Someone should put his feet to the fire on that because he was governor of the Bank of Canada, and that's in their charter, and it's not, and it needs to stop because, $100 doesn't buy anything anymore. And I like using cash, and really if we go with this digital currency, we can't it discriminates against people who use cash, and some of us are addicted to credit, and we have to cut up our cards and put the money in envelopes and say this much for food, this much for rent, this much for.
Just if I could, because we're almost out of time here. The federal government says its debt to GDP ratio is at about 41% right now. So I assume when you're saying, I don't know where you're getting this 106% figure. Are you calculating all the provincial debt, maybe municipal debt? Maybe debt held by utilities. I'm sorry?
From start page. I mean, it's that
start page. Okay, I don't know what that is, but you're right. I mean, we're this year it's $54 billion just to service just the national debt, and then what is it for all the provinces? What is it for municipalities? Just how much is it? I understand your concern, sir. But I just wanted to get some other facts and figures out there. I appreciate your call today. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Paul is in Red Deer up next on the Friday Free for All Talkback. Hi, Paul.
Hi, Rob.
Yeah, hi, Paul.
I just wanted to start by saying I do really appreciate your program. I always have. I've listened to it for a very long time.
Thank you so much.
And you are fair. So I've been hearing a lot of your second caller that called in today that didn't like the idea of it being taught in school. Creation.
Yeah.
Yeah, creationism. Well, I just call it creation, but creationism in school. Back in the day, we did have such things taught way back in the day. So that's been taken away from us. And we've had evolution forced down our throats. This is from a Christian perspective, of course. But so that fellow way back, or your second caller rather, he would not want that taught in the schools. And he believes what he believes, and he evidently believes in evolution. And I think it's far easier to believe in creation than evolution, personally myself, because evolution has never, ever been proven. They've never been able to, we've never once witnessed a frog turning into a this and a that turning into that. We've never once ever seen a monkey turn into a human. We can't see it today. It's gone. Mm-hmm. Evolution is gone. Like somehow it just vanished off into mid-air somewhere. But yet the Stella and so many and so many others, and so many others believe in evolution. But I'd rather believe in a God that said, you can have the dominion over the fish, the cattle, the earth. He gives us freedom of choice. And that choice has been taken away from us, of course, today. But so I would believe in teaching creation in schools. The one fellow you had later on call, there was two of them. One was kind of a little bit disturbed, but the one that said, what my grandchildren being taught that. Well, and then he after that he says, I want them to have a free choice. He takes the choice away and says that he wants them to have a free choice. The free choice is if you can put whatever.
Well, I think, and I think you're talking about Mike, and I think Mike's intention, what he thinks it should be taught at home. Why does it have to be taught in school? Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is, I think, a fair point. That's a fair point. That's a fair point, right?
It is a fair. That's a fair point.
You could say that. You could say that about a lot of things. You could say that about evolution. You could say that about sexual education as well, and all the other controversial stuff that they teach in school these days, I suppose.
Absolutely. And you know what? I think that'd be fantastic if they took evolution and sexual education out of schools, because especially sexual education, I think that should be taught by a parent, not by a school or some system. I think that should be taught by the parent that had that child, and not, taught by a school system that many parents don't. And I'm not just talking about Christians. I'm talking about.
I guess it's all in the details about what would the approach be if they're going to have a curriculum on creationism. Just what is that going to look like? Do you do it from this is what it says in the Bible, because Christianity is not the only major world religion that has a creation story. All have creation stories, and there's not much variation, even between Islam, Judaism, and Christianity when it comes to the creation story.
Yeah,
do you do it from a comparative religious point of view, or just a Christian point of view?
A Christian point of view.
Just a Christian point of view. Okay. All right.
It's time to talk back.
On Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Call now
And have your say.
1-833-668-2577.
Welcome to hour number 2 of Talkback. It's the Friday free-for-all Talkback, so we'll take the conversation wherever you want to take it. A popular topic today has been a poll from Research Co. that asked, do you think there is a place for creationism to be taught in the province's classrooms? And the poll results are, well, I found them shocking. Almost half of those polled said yes, 48%. Think creationism should be taught in the schools. Creationism. God created the world, everything in it in 6 days. Divine will created the universe. Creationism. They should teach almost half. A curious result, to say the least. Driven by an increase in popularity, I will say, among younger Canadians, which I found most interesting. The increase in support for discussing creationism in schools is being driven by Canadians 18 to 35, up 10 points in the last year and a half, 58%, according to Mario Canseco, president of Research Co. Fewer than half of their counterparts aged 35 to 54, 48%, and age 55 and over, 38% favor this course of action. Men favor it slightly more than women. Liberals and conservatives about the same. Very interesting result, and we're just throwing it out there for public consumption today as just a conversation starter. But as I say, Friday free-for-all, so you could start a discussion of your own if you so choose. Right back to the phones. To Cambridge today. Dallas is in Cambridge. Hi, Dallas.
Yes, sir. How are you?
Very good, thank you.
Good.
How are you? Good.
I'm not too bad at all, actually.
That's good. Glad to hear it.
First of all, I'd like to let you know that for getting heated in that one conversation about these politicians granting themselves raises and all these kind of good things and expense accounts and such, don't get me started, because I'll get just as heated as you. It's ridiculous. I mean, let's look at it. All the governments of Ontario, and this not too so long ago, granted themselves a pretty healthy pay raise, all in the name of they claim that it wasn't, their salaries weren't keeping up with inflation. Give me a break. That's all I'm going to say about that.
Well, again, this is not a politician. Again, this is an appointee of the government to run the Canadian Nuclear Safety Commission, paid a handsome salary already of $343,000 a year that came with a $100,000 expense account, travel and hospitality expense account, which apparently was not good enough for him. It was raised to $185,000 and a $50,000 housing allowance.
Yeah, I hear you loud and clear. Yes, no doubt. An appointee, but he's still a form of politician, isn't he? If you will. But anyway,
I would say he's a senior bureaucrat, is what I would say. Okay, yeah, all right, go ahead.
Senior bureaucrat, correct. The main thing that I'm calling in for, and I found it totally appalling. I heard this story on 570 this morning when I was sitting here getting ready to go to work, and it was about these AI-run toys. I don't know if you heard it or not.
No, I didn't hear it, no.
No? Well, according to the story I heard, there's clearly there's a bunch of, there's always interactive toys out there, and now they're being run by AI instead of analog things and such. These toys, now a lot of the stores are pulling them from their shelves because of it. The one blip was about the one woman had bought her child. Now these could be children anywhere from 5 to 15, who knows? But this thing, the kid asked it a question, and it started blurting out sexually explicit content. There was another one, and they actually played it where the child asked the toy a question. I can't remember exactly what it was. And AI came back and started telling the child how to light a match. First thing came to my mind was, who in the HE double hockey sticks is programming these things, and where do the manufacturers find these people to do this? It was just totally insane. And I actually looked it up a little later during my little time off at work, and yeah, it's quite a thing. I could not believe it. AI has gotten totally out of hand, and it is totally unreliable in a lot of instances.
It sure is. Yeah. Very good. Okay. Yeah. Thank you. I'm not familiar with the story, but thank you for raising it. Yeah. What kind of vulnerabilities are there for toys like that? It would seem to be some kind of vulnerability. Let's go to Wayne in Lethbridge today. Hello, Wayne. Thanks for waiting. You're on the air. What's on your mind?
Hey, Rob. Happy Friday. Yeah, I've just been sitting here listening to a couple of the comments, and as far as creationism being taught in school, that's something he's taught at home. Like schools for math, social, science, history, which evolution definitely falls into the history end of it, or the scientific end of it. Your last caller that said there's no scientific proof, I think he needs to pick up more than one book. There's definitely a reason to teach it. That's why we got DNA and all the rest of it to teach the kids about. The other thing is, we're talking about the Liberal government and their waste of money sending to countries that have space programs. If your country has a space program, it's not broke. If your country can afford to try and build these things, you're not broke. You don't need our money. You don't need the money off the backs of the hardworking Canadian people. You can take your people back that you have here and let them figure it out. And, you're quoting numbers, $20, $30 million. And that's a drop in the bucket to the stuff we waste here on things that we don't need to. You've got $30 billion going to residential.
The announcement, I have the announcement right here in front of me, the big news release about this. made by Melanie Joly, the industry minister. $528.5 million. An increase in the investment to the European Space Agency, a tenfold increase compared to previous contributions to advance research and development of Canadian-made space technologies for both civilian and defense purposes. It will help build an industrial base that is ready and capable of supporting Canada's commercial, defense, and security needs.
And so where's the tenfold increase in help for our veterans, help for our disabled people that need it, that are living far below the poverty line? Where's our tenfold increase in unemployment for those people that, that need it for 2 or 3 months? Where's that going? That's $500 million. There's $30 billion that Trudeau wasted on 215 fake graves in Kelowna or in Kamloops. There's the billions that we spend a year on gender programs and all those things, and why not? We need somebody to rein it all in. And that's supposed
to be reined in. Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough. You think spending is out of control? Yeah, fair enough. Okay, thank you. We'll be right back. Talkback Friday, free for all. Talkback, always an adventure. You can go anywhere you want it to go. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
We have 3 or 4 lines available there. Friday free for all Talkback at 1-833-668-2577. Join the discussion. Start one of your own. Let's go to Sam is up next. You're on Talkback. Hi, Sam.
Hi, Rob. How are you?
Very good, Sam. Thanks for calling. What's on your mind?
Well, I was just listening to some of your callers and interesting topics about the government giveaways to the European Space Agency and so on. It seems that all of our governments are giving money to each other in multiple forms and reasons and so on, and it's just sounds like a money laundering scheme.
Okay, but, I don't know if it's a money laundering scheme, but there's certainly a lot of money being splashed around.
Sure is, yeah. And it's interesting that it's all financed by debt. So it should be interesting to see the outcome in a few years of all this stuff. But my real topic was the aircraft manufacturing going on with Prime Minister Carney and the Swedish and King and Queen wining and dining in Canada. And I understand Embraer from Brazil makes those planes, and the parts are shipped in from all over the world. Very few actual people employed doing that assembly of all those imported parts. And then Mr. Carney suggesting that 10,000 Canadians could be employed via Bombardier in Quebec, and then there'd be this great job creation project. But
right. Yeah, it wasn't Mr. Carney who said that. It wasn't Mr. Carney who said that. It was Saab, the maker of the Gripen, who said that. You buy these aircraft, you'll get 10,000 jobs will come along with it. That was the claim.
Well,
you mentioned this Embraer in Brazil, right? Remember, Embraer used to be a big competitor for Bombardier in the civil aviation, and we had Brian Lilly. That was Brian Lilly's reporting from the Toronto Sun. He was on my show this week, and he said he had been doing some digging into that partnership with Embraer and Saab, and it was nowhere near 10,000 jobs, and it's a very similar type of offer, for a fleet of aircraft.
Exactly. And I was just fascinated by the fact that, Canada has all this money to join forces with people and in various provinces and so on, Quebec getting a fair lion's share of the business from most of Canada, like the largest share of the money given back to provinces as part of
equalization.
Yeah, that's I couldn't think of that word, but the end result being that there's not going to be anywhere near that type of amount of jobs, and the Saab aircraft is a fine aircraft, but certainly no match for an F-35. And I get the idea that proud Canadians are standing up for Canada, but I see Canada as making a lot of mistakes and just not making friends with their friends down there.
Yeah, all good points. I just want them to buy darn aircraft. Okay. Right. 15 years ago, we committed to the Joint Strike Fighter program more than 15 years ago. Goes back to the late 1990s, the Joint Strike Fighter program. We've been involved in it ever since. That's more than 25 years now to develop aircraft with the United States and all of our NATO allies. And the F-35 was chosen. And there are companies in Canada that are making parts and equipment and technology for not just for the Canadian planes, and there are no Canadian planes yet, but for the entire fleet. They've sold 1,200 of them around the world. There are all kinds of parts and technology built by Canadian workers in those F-35s. Okay? 2010, Mr. Harper says we're going with the F-35. 5 years later, Mr. Trudeau comes along and says, no, we're not going to go with the F-35. 7 years after that, Mr. Trudeau says, actually, you know what? Forget what I said in 2015. Now it's 2022. We're going to buy 88 F-35. Oh, wait, we're going to buy 16. Then there's another election. Mr. Carney comes along and says, well, hold on, everything's under review. Meantime, our pilots in the Navy, Jeepers Creepers, in the Air Force and the Royal Canadian Air Force are flying aircraft that were first delivered to the Air Force in 1982, sir. Now, you sound like a bit of an old-timer. I don't want to make assumptions here. Do you have a vehicle in your driveway that was made? Do you have a vehicle in your driveway that was made in 1982?
I have a couple of motorcycles in my shed. I have my first one from 1976.
Right. Okay. Should we really expect in this day and age in 2025 for our pilots to be flying planes that were delivered in 1982?
No, Hornets from that era are getting a little long in the tooth.
I would say so, sir. Thank you. Yeah. Got to run. Be right back. I got to go. Thank you. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Herman is up next on the Friday Free for All Talkback. Hi, Herman. What do you want to talk about?
Hi, how you doing, Rob?
Yeah, I'm good. Herman, thanks.
Good. Hey, I just wanted to follow up on that quick blurb that the guy said about religion. In my opinion, I don't think a specific religion should be taught in school as a practicing religion.
Okay.
I think all religion.
Okay.
I think they should teach religion in school as to talk about the horrors of religion. But other than that, no. And evolution can't be taught at home. Like it's not in the same boat as religion. Like, oh, you can teach religion at home or you can teach evolution. It's not in the same boat. Unless you're teaching your kid and you're a biologist or a scientist.
Why not?
Because,
hold on. Why not?
Because unless your parents are a scientist or a biologist or have at least a teaching degree, how are they teaching you that? How do you teach somebody that you have no knowledge about?
Why couldn't you teach creationism in school? Why couldn't you do that?
Why? Oh, you can teach about God and religion in school. But you got to.
Right.
But when I'm talking about that, I'm talking about not teaching it as a practicing religion. Teaching about, like, I think kids in school should be taught about all religions. Hinduism.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. Yeah. Yeah. Well, why couldn't you have a course? Why? And maybe it's just part. It's maybe one part of a study of religion. Okay. What is creationism? What is it in religion, whether it's Christian religion or Islam or Judaism or Buddhism or Sikhism or whatever religion, this is what creationism is in these phase. What's wrong with that? Anything wrong with that?
Because of all the dogmas that go along with it. What are you gonna? So you're gonna blindly teach a kid in school only parts of religion, not dogmas? That the Muslim religion believes that every other religion needs to be wiped off the face of the earth, starting with the Jewish people.
I don't. Okay.
So that's what it comes down to.
So
you're saying teach all the good stuff about religion in school. That's what I learned in school, right? All the good stuff, right?
Okay.
But not
right.
But they didn't
you don't
teach us
think
all
it,
the dogma.
and it's fine if you don't. This is why we're asking the question, and you're in the minority just according to this one poll. 35% of those polled would agree with you and say no, it doesn't belong in school. You shouldn't be teaching creationism in school, which is a fine, very valid opinion. I'm not discounting your opinion at all. You think it belongs at home?
Well, for sure. If you want to teach your kids religion, go ahead. But I mean, I personally, I'm just on a personal level, I think in 2025, a newborn child born into a family, you look at your child and you say you're a Catholic child, you're a Muslim child, that's abuse. It's right up with, because they're not. They're just a child. They're only Muslim because they were born in a Muslim family. They're only Catholic.
Okay. All right. You've made your point. You've made your view very clear. Okay, thank you. You never know where the conversation is going to take you sometimes when it's the Friday free-for-all. More of your opinions, more of your calls coming up right after the news. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
It sure is in the home stretch now on a Friday free-for-all Talkback. Let's go to Zach is up next. Hi, Zach. What's on your mind, Zach?
Rob, I'm so glad you brought up this topic. My first call to you weeks ago, I told you about my traditional Catholic church was full of young people. I would love to see the age demographics of this poll. But anyways, here's my thoughts.
I read them out. Let me read that again. The increase in support for discussing creationism in schools is being driven by Canadians 18 to 35. 58% support. According to Mario Canseco, president of Research Co., fewer than half of their counterparts, aged 35 to 54, 48% support. 55 and over, 38% support. There you go.
So my thoughts, the definition of science refers to any systematic body of certain, demonstrated, or reasonable knowledge. What most people, like now, modern people, call science was historically referred to as natural science. But philosophy and theology were always considered sciences too, based on that definition. Many of your callers might be shocked to learn this, but the founder of the Big Bang Theory was a priest. Founder of modern genetics was a Catholic monk. Catholic nun was one of the founders of computer programming, and so on. But like these men and women, they reconciled science, evolution, and God's role in ordering the universe. They didn't see a conflict in it.
Yeah, again, I just want to kind of stick to the basic topic here. Why do you think? Because I'm surprised it has this much support that almost half of Canadians would say, sure, teach creationism in the schools. Why do you think it's that high? Because I didn't think it would be that high. And if you were to do that, how would you go about doing that?
I guess the toughest part is, and it's not really tough because like you stated, a lot of the religions kind of have already like a basic, like broadened understanding of what creation is. Like it's, and especially in the Abrahamic tradition, but really like when people, the idea of creationism at its broadest sense was something Aristotle believed in, that like there's a unmoved mover, something that's like above out space and time that ordered the universe. It's not, yes, I understand people's concerns about mixing in dogma and doctrine and maybe conflicting beliefs, but, that's more for private or Catholic schools, that type of thing. But the concept of an ordering of the universe, like, there was something, an unmoved mover that stood outside of time and space, that was reconciled thousands of years ago, that question. And we only recently removed that from our curriculums.
Well, I don't know. I don't know if it's ever going to be reconciled, and you and I are not going to reconcile it today, Zach, even though if it may be reconciled in your mind. Thank you, though, for your call. Ryan up next. Hi, Ryan. Oh, doesn't sound like we have Ryan. Who do we have after Ryan? Aaron. Let's try Aaron. Hi, Aaron.
Hey, Rob. Long time on the show there, first time caller.
Well, thank you so much. To what do I owe the pleasure?
My topic today, it's a little off topic, but last weekend I took a flight on Flair Airlines and just kind of want to throw a little shame onto them. They offer the cheapest flights in all of Canada. And, a quarter of the passengers, including myself, when we all got up to the gates, they started charging everyone for bags. And, it ended up costing everyone about $100 more per bag just to take their flights. And, it basically ended up being the same price for a standard ticket like you would get on Air Canada for what you expected for the service quality for them.
Did you not know that up front that they would charge you? Because that was always my understanding with these budget airlines. Everything is extra.
Well, I mean, they allow some bags. So, like, I had a backpack, so some backpacks were allowed on. Other bags, they put through this little sizer thing that's not really realistic. And, basically, I was still able to prove that my bag fit under the thing. Anyways, I just kind of want to throw a little shame on them and, just a pre-warning to
So
other
you
passengers
brought, I just so I'm clear, you didn't check a bag. You didn't check a bag?
No, didn't check a bag. It was just a small
You carried
carry-on,
on a bag.
little backpack. Yeah, and
and they charged you for that?
Like a $30. It was a $30 more charge. I've been like, okay, whatever. But it was $100 for a backpack to bring onto the flight.
Really?
So
Okay.
it ends up being that your flight that they claim is the cheapest in all of Canada. All of a sudden, you're paying just as much or more for the same flight to go across the same areas.
Where did you fly from and to? Where were you going?
Just from Calgary to BC.
Where in BC? Where are you going? Vancouver or?
YVR, so yeah, Vancouver.
Okay. And how much was it?
In total, I think for my wife and I, it was about $400 to fly, and added the backpack charge, ended up being about $600. I may have my numbers off a little bit on the original flight cost.
For the two of you, 600 each or 600 all in?
600 all in.
600 all in. Okay.
Yeah.
One way, I'm assuming. One way.
That was one way. Yeah. Yeah.
One way. Okay. All right. It's out there. I don't know, with these budget airlines. Don't get me started about airlines. There's an old thing with those budget airlines. They'll charge you for everything. The fare that you pay up front is only, and pardon my crude language, it's only for your ass and your gas. I'm Rob Snow. This is Talkback. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Friday, free for all Talkback. Let's get to William up next in Calgary today. Hi, William.
Hey, Rob. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you just fine, William. Go ahead.
Okay. Just with the whole creationism and evolution. My wife's a teacher. She teaches biology, but she teaches in a largely Muslim community. And so when she presents the evolution, she says, this is just one point of view. And as for teaching creation, I have no problem with them teaching a theology class about creationism, but not only this God created the world in 7 days, but they should also bring up like the First Nations world creationism as well.
Yeah, it's very interesting that you raise that. Just from the poll, they break it down by background, ethnicity. Majority of Canadians whose origins are South Asian, 73% support South Asian. Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
Indigenous, 57% support discussing creationism in the classroom, but maybe that's in an Indigenous school from an Indigenous perspective and about an Indigenous creator, right?
Yeah, but I think you could create a local an actual class just on theology around, like the theology around creationism itself, like just from creationism for just not just the, you know, Christian Judaism, but the First Nations and South Asian and like Aboriginal.
Sure.
You could make an entire class just around it.
Yeah.
So that's just my point of view, right? So
it says fewer Canadians whose heritage is East Asian, 45% supported it, and European people of European ancestry, 35%, only 35%.
Yeah.
So that's actually the lowest of all the ethnic
like,
groups that took part in this particular survey.
You don't present it as a this is the way it is. This is the only, but present it like multicultural, like this in terms of this is creation story from different cultures, and just leave it at that. Like rather than promote one or the other, just present them all.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
That's just my point of view.
Okay. Yeah. Good one. Solid point of view. Thank you, William. Yeah. Sean up next, also in Calgary today. Hi, Sean.
Hey, Rob. Free for all Friday. First time caller here.
Appreciate that. What's on your mind?
Listen, so I heard the F-35 and I've heard all these religious comments and stuff. I'm 60 years of age and I've worked all across this country, including Fort McMurray. Worked at Western Star Trucks when we built those 3,000 military trucks, LSVW.
Okay.
This D&I and this massive immigration is going to be the fall of Canada, and you're going to see it. You'll be around to see it. It's going to be the fall because the vetting process wasn't done properly. And I'm going to say it to you, and I'll give it to you in a gist. And I had to think it through, really think before I got accepted through as a caller. Okay, you let the immigrants come here. The World Bank says that you let them come here, you can print the money. You print the money. Your name is Sean Fraser. You're the Minister of Immigration. Your name is Sean Fraser. You're the Minister of Housing. Now you're Sean Fraser, and you're the Minister of Justice. But here's the kicker. You let them come into Canada, you print the money, and then you don't process the paperwork. That's the biggest crime of all humanity. That should be on, like, the world. That's the free-for-all Friday of Rob Snow's Talkback. That's the shitstorm ready to happen.
All right. Well, you should have thought it out a little better than that, because I'm going to have to end our conversation there. And quite honestly, I have no idea what you're talking about, sir. I just have no idea what you're even talking about. Look, is there anybody on the line? There's nobody on the line right now, right? No? Okay. You ask for a Friday free for all. You get what you deserve sometimes. You just never know. You're going to press Curtis going to press like line 4. You don't know what the heck you're getting into sometimes when you press that. But, you just see where it goes. And if it goes a little bit too far, you've got to wrap it up. That's just kind of the way it is. I think the most provocative remark in the news this week came from Pete Hextra. We have some audio of this that Curtis is going to play. He doesn't understand. He's the U.S. ambassador to Canada. He is Trump's spokesperson in Canada in diplomatic circles. He goes to all the big events, all the fancy parties in Ottawa. And there was a big fancy party in Ottawa this week, big manufacturers conference. And he says he doesn't understand all the upset Canadians were feeling about the comments Donald Trump was making about the 51st state. He said he admitted he doesn't understand the blowback. And then he suggested certain premiers, like the Ontario Premier Doug Ford, might want to think twice before they play anti-Trump ads on television in the United States again. It suggested, my words, that it's not helpful and they're not going to stand for it. And he basically said it was election meddling, because you'll recall there were some off-year election campaigns happening in the United States at that time. Let's listen again to what the ambassador said in Ottawa this week. Pete Hextra, roll the tape.
I go around the country and people will say, Pete, you just don't understand why we're so mad about the 51st state. It's kind of like, yeah, you're right, I don't. Okay? Well. And then I read, all I can say is to my Canadian friends is, you don't understand, because I read the media and I listen to other discussions, the president got mad about an ad. Well, I've been in this business for a while and I know people who've been in it longer than I have. And I asked them, okay, the ad that was run by the government of Canada. Oh, that's not the government of Canada, it's Ontario. It's kind of like, I'm sorry, we don't go through that, slicing and dicing. And, it's kind of like, No one can ever remember a like circumstance where a foreign government came into the United States and, they were talking about $54 million of ads, American dollars, so real money. Just a joke,
okay.
just a joke. Okay, lighten up.
That's the quote they're going to remember.
Yeah, that's going to get me into trouble. But targeting the President of the United States and his policies 10 days before an election and a couple of weeks before a Supreme Court case would be heard in front of the Supreme Court. I'm sorry, that does not happen.
Yeah, Pete Hextra, ambassador to Canada, U.S. ambassador to Canada. Doesn't get why Canadians would be upset about the 51st state stuff. Maybe he's just playing dumb. But man, he was not happy with that ad. They're still not happy. They still haven't gotten over that. And during the same conversation at that conference, he made it pretty clear that's when everything blew up. He actually said the two sides, Canada and the United States, were actually making progress. He called them wins on the board. The plan was we both go out, we'll be able to put wins on the board. But Doug Ford decided to air those commercials and blew everything up. Be right back. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
One of the big stories this week from the financial markets has to be the great Bitcoin sell-off. Sorry about that, Curtis. Your Bitcoin portfolio taking a hit.
It's funny
again
you think
today.
I pay and invest in Bitcoin.
Like Bitcoin has been all over the place today. It traded like just today as high as $87,356, and it dropped way down to $80,756. And now it's back up to just above $84,000, but it broke through $84,000. This is in US dollars. So Bitcoin for this week is down about 9% just for the week, and it's lost almost a quarter of its value in the last month. Holy smokes, volatile Bitcoin. In the last 52 weeks, it's been as low as 74,000, and the 52-week high, 126,000. This week has been the worst sell-off for Bitcoin in more than 3 years, but it's been a great run for the last 2 years. You remember Bitcoin in 2023 sank as low as 18,000 US, 18,600. So I mean, if you bought the dip then, you're still sitting pretty at 84 grand US. You buy a few Bitcoins tonight if you win the Lotto Max. And the jackpot is 50 million tonight for the Lotto Max. And the 649 is getting up there too. 649 gold ball jackpot, 30 million. So, you lottery players, 80 million in two draws up for grabs over the weekend. The Lotto Max draw is tonight, 649 tomorrow night. Some good football. The Buffalo Bills game was good last night. Went right down to the wire, really, but they fell to Houston with Week 12 getting underway. Week 12 already in the NFL. So Texas hung on for the win, 23-19 over the Bills. Josh Allen sacked 8 times. What are you watching this weekend? Got to watch the Chiefs and Colts, I think. What do you think? KC 5-5.
I'll watch KC
fighting
go down
for their
weekend.
playoffs lives. I want to see the Colts. I think are just going to dismantle the Chiefs. Eagles and Dallas. That'll be a good afternoon game. And the late game, not bad either. Rams and Bucks. I was looking, Curtis. The NHL regular season is about a quarter of the way through now. Most teams have played at least 20 games. As it stands today, if the playoffs started today, the only team with a playoff spot in the East, the Ottawa Senators, baby.
Oh, love to see it.
Montreal and Toronto on the outside looking in, but very tight in the East. Things could totally look different after Hockey Night in Canada is over tomorrow. In the West, if the playoffs started today, the only Canadian team that would make the playoffs would be the Winnipeg Jets. And Calgary, with a quarter of the season done, the worst record in the entire NHL.
McKenna sweepstakes.
Tough season for Flames fans. The latest breaking news up next.